So let me start over. Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly, and I'm one of the coordinators at AWID, doing work on feminist realities, as well as our international forum that we host every 4 to 5 years. So I just wanted to formally welcome you all to this call, to this online activity. We are really, really excited that so many people have expressed an interest in this. And that so many of you are already on the call and still joining. The numbers are increasing as I speak. So we will be recording this call because we do hope to share with folks who weren't able to attend. We recognize that this is a different time for you all based on where you are in the world. And so for some, it's super early. For some, it's happening as they sleep. And so we want to be able to share it with as many folks as possible. I also wanted to say that because of the number of people on the call, unfortunately, we won't be able to hear from everyone. We do encourage you to use the video if you like. If you're not comfortable with that, that is totally fine. But it is one way to sort of show each other who's on the call. But we do encourage you to use the chat. So if you have questions, if you have comments, suggestions, or if you're just saying hi, please feel free to use the chat. And we do have AWID staff who are on the call, who will introduce themselves shortly, who will be monitoring the chat and trying to respond to some of your questions, but also letting me know when it's time to sort of slow down or when it's time to respond to a question or two. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know how we plan on engaging with today's activity. But again, we do regret that we're not able to have you all jumping in and saying hi and hearing your beautiful voices. It's just, we just have too many people on the call. Okay, so at this point, I just want to welcome the other staff on the call to say hi. So maybe we can start with Ali.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Hello. I'm trying to put my yes. Well, hello. I'm trying to put my camera, and for some reason it's not working. I'm very sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm Alejandra Sarda Chandiramani. I am the director of the forum project, and I have the pleasure of working with all the lovely people from AWID you will shortly meet. I am in Montevideo.
Thank you, Ali. Fenia?
Hey everyone, I hope you can hear me. I'm Fenia and I'm co-creating Feminist Realities Coordinator. And I'm really excited to see so many of you here. And I'm based in London, in UK.
Thanks, Fenia. Lena?
Hi everyone, I'm Lena Gomez. I'm the Forum Logistics Manager and I'm based in Toronto. I'm very excited to see all the great turnout for today. So back to you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Lena. Maggie?
Buenos dias, hello. Greetings from Costa Rica. My name is Margarita and I'm very happy that we're all here. We're hitting over 90 people. People keep joining, and I'm very excited about this conversation we're having today.
Thanks, Maggie. Shelly? Shelly, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes. In addition to losing my voice, I was on mute. I'm Shelley Buckingham. I'm based in Toronto. I'm the digital communications lead at AWID. And yeah, this is a fantastic turnout, the most we've ever had for a webinar. So this is very exciting for all of us. And yeah, I'm happy to get started and meet everybody.
Okay. Did I miss any other staff who are joining us?
I think that's everyone. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone. And also just wanted to say that this activity is happening in English, but we will be having some follow-up activities later in November and December as we lead up to the forum that will be in multiple languages. I also wanted to acknowledge that folks are very excited or have a lot of questions about our upcoming forum. We will talk about the forum a bit later. I wanted to both hold that excitement and anxiety or nervousness or just questions you're holding about the forum and recognize that and appreciate you for that, but also to say that, yeah. Oh, and let me just remind folks, if you can mute yourself, that will be great. It kind of helps to make sure we're all able to hear each other. So as I was saying, I want to acknowledge that folks have a lot of questions around the forum and feelings about the forum, and we want to hold that, but also to say that the purpose of today's activity is really to talk about our Feminist Realities Toolkit, the framing, and to give you an overview of the forum, and really an overview of how you can possibly participate. But if you have very specific questions, like we did receive some emails with very specific questions around funding, around the criteria to get your proposals accepted, those are very specific questions that we may not be able to answer today. I just wanted to be transparent and upfront about that. But do know that we will have a Facebook Live session in a few weeks that will be specifically about the call for activities. So how you can actually submit proposals to the forum. So please feel free to sort of hold on to those questions, make note of them, and then we'll be able to respond to them at a later date. So hopefully that feels okay for you. And then we'll jump into the call. I'm just going to try to mute someone. So just 1 second. Because I can hear them. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do this too often throughout the call. So again, if you can mute yourself, that will be really, really great. Thank you. All right, let's get back into it. I'm unable to mute. I'm seeing, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, and I think the person is having trouble signing in or signing out, but Madhuperna Ghosh, I hope I said your name right. You keep coming on and off mute, so if you can maybe just keep checking in case it's a bit glitchy, okay? Thank you, everyone. Okay, so let's jump back into our activity for today. So there was an email sent out inviting you to sign in a bit earlier to sort of get familiar with Zoom. So thank you so much to all of you who did that. If you are still signing in and you're probably unfamiliar with the platform, this slide is really a basic overview of some of the pieces on the platform that you will find useful for today's activity. Zoom has many, many tools. So this is not meant to be an exhaustive orientation to Zoom, but just really to help you feel comfortable as we proceed with today's call. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see the microphone, which will allow you to mute and unmute yourself. So you can just click that. If you want at any point to stop or start your video, you also can do that at the bottom. Some folks have found it helpful to not use video if they're having internet difficulties because it affects the bandwidth. So if you notice that the sound is a bit off or you're unable to really see the screen, things just feel or connect to the call, maybe stopping your video might help with that. If you want to see the participants who are on the call, there's also that participants button at the bottom. And that is also where you can see yourself and you can change your name. So this is Alejandra's account. As you all probably would have seen her email, you've been emailing her asking questions about today's activity. But myself, Kimberly, I'm the one facilitating the call, so I changed my name. You can also put your gender pronouns if you want to make sure that we are addressing you accurately. And then in the chat at the bottom is where you can put all of your questions. And as I mentioned earlier, there are AWID staff on the call who will help to respond to some of those questions. But again, please hold on to those questions because we will make sure to have some time towards the end of the call to make sure that we're responding to some of those, okay? Fenia, Shelley, are there any questions about the platform in the chat?
No, not yet.
All good for now.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so a formal welcome and thank you so much. The purpose of today's activity is to hopefully deepen your familiarity and knowledge of the Feminist Realities framework, which we have been using at AWID a lot to help design and conceptualize and advance our political work, but also to get you familiar with our toolkit, the Feminist Realities Toolkit. We also hope that by the end of today's call, you will feel more excitement, if you're not already feeling excitement, about the upcoming forum, and that you have some basic knowledge around what we will be looking for in the proposal process, the proposal submission process. So again, this is not meant to be a detailed introduction to the criteria, to how you can like find funding for the forum, etc. But it's really meant to give you a bit of a teaser. And keep in mind, we will have the Facebook Live session very soon. Okay, so if you haven't already done so, I know folks who joined earlier, you were sharing in the chat your name, where you're based, and any organizational or movement affiliation, but I just wanted to sort of pause here and invite you, if you haven't already done so, to type in the chat who you are, what's your gender pronoun, if you would like to share, what organizations or movements are you working with, are you building with, and where are you based in the world? I know we have folks from all over the world on today's call. So I'll just pause here. And Shelley and Fenia, feel free to jump in and share some of what you're seeing from folks. Shelley, Fenia?
Yes, sorry. I think Fenia is recording some of the...
Yeah, it's going very fast, but I can try. I'll read some out loud. I think that will be the easiest. So we have so many people writing at the moment from everywhere. We have Laxman from Nepal, based in Washington. We have Maria Fontanelle from St. Lucia, working with, I don't know how to pronounce this, but ECADE, which is LGBTQ umbrella organization in the Caribbean. We have Leisha with International Rescue Committee, based in Afghanistan. We've got it's going fast. We've got Carolina, based in Colombia. We've got people in Nairobi in Kenya as well. We've got Zura, based in Toronto in Canada, with Action Against Hunger. Then we have people in London, Rachel Noble from Action Aid in London. We have, Pamela from Lebanon as well, joining us.
Nice. Fenia, do we have any folks doing work on land peasant rights? Do we have any?
Let me have a look. It's it's updating very quickly. So we have Nokwanda from South Africa, is an illustrator there as well. Land rights. I'm looking. Anyone want to type if you're working in land rights?
Yeah, I was just throwing it out.
Yeah. Philza, based in Singapore, with the Association of Women for Action and Research. Lame with the Estrella Foundation, based in Botswana. So you can see really a lot of people based everywhere have joined us. I haven't been able to read out everyone's names, and I'm really sorry. We have Anke, based in Toronto, who is an anti-oppression facilitator as well. And I'm Rezwan, based in Bangladesh, working in LGBTQI advocacy.
Awesome.
I'll stop now, but there's many other people.
Awesome, thank you. So as you can tell, we have such a range of folks and different experiences working on really important things that define and shape the kinds of worlds we want. And just want to, again, welcome all the folks who are doing work on LGBTQI rights, all the folks doing work on workers' rights, gender, feminisms, which I'm sure many of us on the call do, folks who are doing anti-state violence work, folks who are doing work around reproductive justice and reproductive rights. Thank you and welcome. So Fenya and Shelley will be putting them onto these Post-it notes. And as I mentioned earlier, for folks who missed it, we will be sharing this PowerPoint with you all along with the recording so that you're able to continue to use it as a point of reference. And hopefully some of you will stay in touch with each other. So thank you. And again, sorry that we're unable to hear your voices. So at this moment, I just want to pause and show this video. This is an animation video that we did as part of our work on feminist realities. And it really, we hope that it's a short clip that we hope will give you some sense as to what we mean and understand to be feminist realities. So I'll just show that now, and hopefully you can hear it. And again, we will share this after if you cannot. So I'll start right now. Oh, yes.
De todas maneras, eso trabaja con UPAC, ¿verdad? Entonces, la agenda juvenil también está trabajando con UPAC. Sí. Es lo mismo, no importa. Ahí vamos a decir hablado. Sí, todos los de aquí. Para ver si nace el niño. Para el bebé. Si nace excelencia. Si nace, pero todavía no ha nacido. Sí. No, está asomando la cabecita, pero...
Great.
Kimberly, I just wanted to give a reminder to everyone, if they can't see the chat, to please mute themselves when you join. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Fenya. So that is just our short animation clip to give you a sense as to what we mean by feminist realities. Oops. And with that, as we were thinking about feminist realities, what do we mean? What are we hoping to accomplish? What are we trying to change? We decided that developing a toolkit would be one way to help us think through some of that. And what we understand as the toolkit is not just a sort of guide with a list of activities that you can do, but it's also our way of documenting and expanding what we mean by the term feminist realities. So it is partially about theory and practice, and it's also about strategies and tactics and tools that you can use. And we've heard from members that they have used the toolkit in a range of spaces. For example, we heard from Ida, who does work with domestic workers in Trinidad and Tobago, who said that she used some of the tools in the toolkit when she was doing a meeting with her members. So you can use the toolkit in a variety of ways, and it really is just meant to be a guide to support the already incredible work that you all are doing. And so this toolkit that we developed, and if Fenya and Shelley can maybe share the link in the chat if you haven't already seen it, really was a co-created process. It started, some of the initial thinking started amongst staff, then it expanded as we included a range of external partners in conversations as we thought through it. They also helped us think about the design and what are some of the key elements of the toolkit. We then hired someone who really focused on the text and then also had conversations with community folks in Australia, with folks doing work on Indigenous rights, land rights, etc. And they also gave their input into the flow and the elements of the toolkit. And then that then expanded further to include a designer who looked at the text, who looked at the text and used the text to come up with the beautiful visuals that you're seeing on the screen. And that person, Vidushi, is based in India. And so we had all of these people who were part of the thinking, the designing, the drafting, the editing. And I just wanted to really acknowledge that and to thank them and thank all of the staff who helped to create this toolkit. So this is our Feminist Realities Toolkit. But before we move further, I just wanted to sort of take pause again and invite you to type in the chat. You've seen our animation video. You might have already looked at the toolkit. Now, what comes to your mind when you think of the term feminist reality? So I'll just pause here and invite Shelley and Fenya to share what they're seeing in the chat.
Okay, we have Anik saying diversity. Danilo says power. Gunez, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, says awareness. Wendy says equality. Celine says freedom. Farida says access. Maria says hope. Susan, intersectionality. Manu, collective. Hira, when I think of feminist reality, it's very important for me to always prioritize accessibility. Working with trans people is a must to think of that. Sarah says peaceful and equitable coexistence. Colleen says safety for WHRDs. Marisa says relentless. Siska says unity. Mohammed says easy and equal access. Cielito, collective work / action. Thabo, sustainable development. Maria, diversity, collective power. Amy, equal voices. We have another diversity from Julie. Rachel, free from violence. Ida, our future life to live in decency. Marissa says inclusion, solidarity, accountable to women and girls, people of all Sogi. Pamela says body ownership, autonomy, and inclusivity. Agents of change, we have intergenerational work, centering those who are most impacted and targeted by inequity. Equality and diversity again, challenging power over and privilege. Yeah, these are really.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, these are really powerful, profound words. And like, we know that the term feminist realities may not immediately register for some people, but what we hope will register is the feeling you get when we explain the term. And so we'll move into that a bit more, and we invite you to keep sharing in the chat. We'll include some of those responses in the PowerPoint on these flipped post-it notes. So for us, we understand feminist realities as things that are very much possible right now. They are the ways in which movements and people and communities are building the kinds of futures, but also building currently the kinds of lives that they deserve, and that are really very much grounded in justice, very much grounded in self-determination, and very much grounded in a sort of co-liberation, that my liberation, my freedom is very much linked to yours. They exist right now. For us, they are practices, ideas, ways of doing. So not just like tangible things and infrastructure and that people are building, but also the ways in which we interact with each other, the kinds of relationships that we build, and how we see each other. And we know that for us, feminist realities, they are about resistance, which is a very important part of that. Many of us live in surroundings and in climates that are very much based in and reliant on violence and oppression. And we see feminist realities as very much including that resistance and oppression, but also moving beyond to show us what a world without exploitation and supremacy and domination can look like. So for us, feminist realities can hold all of these things. They can hold the resistance, and they can also hold the possibilities and the ways of doing that exist in spite of violence. So for us, feminist realities really are our power in action. So if we were to summarize it, we just came up with these 4 words. We would say that feminist realities affirm. So they affirm that all of us in our bodies are valued, valuable, that our lives and what we bring to the world is not based on how much work we can do, right? So they really affirm for us our truths and our humanity. They disrupt systems and processes and practices of violence and discrimination and supremacy. They mobilize collective power. So feminist realities are not just about what one individual is doing. And yes, we all play a critical role, but they're really about mobilizing and increasing our collective power. So that's how we understand feminist realities. Jamila, do you mind just muting yourself? We're just asking everyone if possible to mute so that we can all hear each other.
Oh, for me.
Oh, no, sorry, Jamila.
Yes.
Sorry. We're just asking everyone to mute themselves. And then
okay.
If you would like to share, please, we invite you to share in the chat. And then we're going to save some time towards the end to see if we can hear some folks. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. So
I am Jamila. Carry on.
Jamila?
Yes.
Sorry, we're not inviting folks to share as yet, but can you mute? Thank you so much. So in terms of the toolkit, I mentioned earlier that one of our members talked to us about some of the ways in which she's using the toolkit. And we also just want to say that the toolkit is meant to be a guide. We know that we have missed some things. We know that there are areas we can continue to expand on. And we know that it's also a very long document. We acknowledge that. But we want you to think of the toolkit as a way to think about your audience. Who is it that I am working with? What is it that they need? What are some of the safety needs that I need to think about? For example, if we're hosting a meeting or a convening, can we actually just have people posting online and on social media, taking pictures? What does that mean for the safety of those in the space who cannot engage in that way? What are some accessibility needs? And accessibility goes beyond physical accessibility. This also takes into consideration things around health, well-being, mental health, etc. And it's always important to ask. We want you to also think of the toolkit as a way of shaping the length and scope of your activity, your workshop, your convening. And there are some questions in the toolkit that we ask you to think about. So when you are opening up a space, for example, do you acknowledge the caretakers of the land? Do you recognize the ways in which Indigenous peoples who have been dispossessed of their land, of their ways of being, are we acknowledging that? And also, are we also acknowledging the ways in which they continue to care for the water and the land? And then we want you to also think of the toolkit as a guide in shaping the meeting where you can invite people to think about the feminist world that they want to live in. What will it look like? Sometimes it's hard because we exist in spaces and moments of such violence and hardship. It's sometimes really hard to think about possibilities and think about, if all of these things did not exist, what would my role look like? And so really inviting people to have a conversation about feminist realities. And these are some of the ways in which you can use the toolkit. But again, there are so many more. And we also created the toolkit in a way and categorized it in a way that you don't have to read from start to finish to feel like you understand the toolkit and that it's useful to you. You may have, let's say, an hour to do a workshop. You can skip to that part of the toolkit where it says, if you have an hour, these are some of the things you can do. And vice versa. If you had 2 days, here is the part of the toolkit you can skip to. Or if you just wanted to get familiar with the tools in the toolkit, you can just go to the very back where we have everything listed. So those are just some of the things you can do with the toolkit. So we want you to think of it as a way to create spaces for feminist conversations, to also create feminist visions, and to really enable a collaborative approach to the work in the space, in designing the activity, as well as in the implementation and the follow-up of that activity. So I just want to pause here before we move into the forum, and some folks are still unmuted. So please, if you can mute yourself, that would be great. I can't go in to do it with you because I'm sharing my screen. Fenya and Shelley, are there questions that people have raised about the Feminist Realities Framework and the
No, all good for now.
Yeah? Okay, thank you. All right, so we're moving into the part that people are probably very excited about, our international forum. So the 14th International AWID Forum is taking place in October 2020. And we made the announcement a while ago, maybe a month, 6 weeks or so ago. And we announced that it will be taking place in Bali, Indonesia. The current dates for the forum are October 14th to the 17th. And the theme is Feminist Realities, Our Power in Action. So the very thing we've been talking about for the past little while. We thought it would be really important to have some of these pre-forum online activities where you're able to ask questions, because the theme of the forum, as I mentioned earlier, may not immediately register, but it is, if it's a theme, so it's clearly a very important part of the forum. And so it's really critical that people understand what we mean by feminist realities. Now, our AWID forums have typically brought over like 2,000 and sometimes more than 2,000 people, feminists, social justice activists, into one space. And so we do recognize that they are really important spaces that bring together really progressive, radical thought in people. And so it's our responsibility to help maintain and create those spaces. And we envision the 2020 forum as creating a space where people can come and discuss and strengthen their understanding of feminist realities, and to also experience our very own feminist realities. And so in the past, we've done a call for proposals. This year, we are calling for activities, because we really want you to think beyond the typical historical panel type setting, and allow yourself to tap into that really creative part of you, or maybe your coworkers and your colleagues, maybe they want to also tap into their creative sides and come together, bring minds together, get really creative, get really innovative, get really bold, and think of activities for the forum. And so that call for activities will be launched in November 2019, not 2020. So the call for activities, as I mentioned, we really want to encourage you to be bold, creative, innovative. Think about interactive and creative activities that celebrate and name and share feminist realities that are powerful and that are propositional. So when we say propositional, what I mentioned earlier, holding the resistance part, but also holding the creative part. So not only are you talking about resistance and the ways in which we do that and struggles, but you're also talking about the cracks in the wall that we enter and that we sort of slowly widen so that we can create alternatives, for lack of a better term, create things to replace those systems of violence. And think about examples of feminist realities that really are transformative and that infuse us with hope and energy. So think about those things as your brain juices are flowing and you're like, okay, what can we submit in the call for activities? Keep that in mind. Is it bold? Is it creative? Is it different? Is it innovative? Is it going to inspire hope and excitement? Is it transformative? And is it propositional? So here I'm going to slow down because these are a bit new and I don't want to lose folks. So let me just take some time here to just kind of walk you through what we mean by these kinds of activities. So visioning. When we talk about visioning, we are referring to spaces where people can imagine and name diverse experiences of feminist reality. So it could be an activity where you invite the participants to individually input their ideas around what a feminist world that is anti-capitalist, or what a feminist world that is based on cooperative economics, what will that look like? And so you have the participants actually coming up with ideas and they're all creatively creating that vision. So an example of an activity could be an art installation that is created by the participants, or maybe you're acting out scenarios of what this feminist world could look like. So visioning, that would be some examples. We also want you to think of experiences and the sharing of experiences. So these would be spaces where the participants can come, they can feel, touch, sense, really immerse themselves in concrete examples of feminist realities and in a variety of ways. So maybe you'll have a feminist market where people are displaying their various examples, or maybe there's improvised theater or a tribunal, a feminist tribunal, but it allows for a sharing of experiences and it really allows for people to immerse themselves in what these things can feel like. There's also skill sharing. So perhaps you want to create a space where people are sharing tools, knowledges, mechanisms, processes that they have used or that they have seen others use or that they want to try that they believe will contribute to strengthening feminist realities. So an example could be popular education activities or other participatory and emancipatory methodologies that really inspire learning, unlearning, and relearning. So that's what we understand as skill sharing. Then we have debates. So these can be spaces where opposing views on issues and topics and approaches, a range of things are being presented and are being held in a way where people are able to argue, review, even criticize, and challenge each other, maybe challenge a feminist reality, right? Maybe you're all kind of debating the feasibility or the purpose of a feminist reality. But keep in mind, as much as we want to inspire and evoke debate, we want to do that in a way where no one feels like their views are just being shut down and dismissed. So you have to really think about, if that is something you want to propose as an activity, you also have to think about how are we holding that space in a way that is filled with integrity, yes, and care. Then also we have dialogues at the fault lines. These can be connected and may feel similar to the debates. The dialogues at the fault lines are really to pair each other. So what are the points of tension? So it might not be a full debate. The participants may generally agree that this community should have a basic right to X, but there might be this point of tension around competing rights, or it might be do they have full rights, or maybe some. So it's just a bit of a nuance. What are some of the dialogues at the fault lines? Or it could be something much more heated. it really is up to you. But we want to think of dialogues at the fault lines as those moments where we are able to hear each other about some of those tensions that, if not addressed, can create deeper fault lines. But if addressed, can actually really increase our collective power. Fire starters. These are spaces for short, stimulating, and simple speeches. So you might just open up the space and say, just open it up, actually. You don't even have to necessarily provide too much detail, but people are able to just kind of step in and, let's say, 5 minutes or so, share something that is inspiring, stimulating, gets people thinking and excited. And keep in mind, these activities can be linked to each other. So maybe your activity starts off with a fire starter, where you open up the space and people are able to just share whatever comes to them. And then if you notice that there are common themes, then you sort of pick 1 or 2 common themes, and then you lead into a sharing of experiences or a visioning or a debate. So keep in mind, you can feel free to use these to complement each other, to add on to each other. And finally, reflections on the unknown and collective learning. So these are spaces where you get to ask questions. No question is a stupid question. You get to test concepts. You get to design possibilities, and take the next step on this feminist realities journey. So you just open up a space, or you create a space where people are able to just really ask what to them might be questions that they felt like, okay, if I ask this question, it's going to be seen as silly. I'm sure everyone understands it. Maybe not. And even if you think everyone understands it, you create a space where people can ask them. Or it could be a question that many people have been thinking about and has been really difficult to answer. You create a space where they're able to really take pause and reflect. So I'll pause here because I know that that was a lot of information, and just open up. Shelly and Fenya, are we noticing any feelings, questions in the chat?
No questions so far, but if anyone has questions, feel free to type them in the chat and we can read them out.
And we'll also, again, save some time towards the end for questions. So if nothing is coming up now, there will be a moment where we'll pause again.
There's a question. Pamela's asking whether the proposal for the activity should include all of the things that you mentioned, so all the examples. And there's a couple more, but I can do one by one maybe.
No, these are just suggested containers that we're asking you to think about as you design your proposals. So you can use this as a guide, but as long as your activity is about feminist realities, as long as your activity is bold and creative, it doesn't have to be connected to any of this. It could be something totally new that we hadn't thought of. We're just kind of proposing these as examples to get you thinking a bit outside of your comfort zone, outside of your box, if that makes sense.
Someone is asking when the proposals will be due, but I guess you can, so there's 2 questions in the call for proposals. One is, will this background information be included in it? And also, when does the call close?
Right, so the call for activities has not yet been launched. So I'll just repeat, because I know some people have been joining at different times. The call for activities will be launched in November. And when it is launched, we will have information in there that will help you think about the kinds of activities and also the criteria that we'll be using to assess. So that way you know what you're walking into, or you know what you're entering into, and it will help kind of give you a guide to frame your thoughts. And in the call for activities, that's where we will put the due date.
Someone said that they, Lisha, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, said that they really appreciate the format shift from purely panels to activities. And then Kira, again, apologies for mispronunciations, asked what the suggested length might be.
What suggested length?
For the different activities, if there is just a time limit, etc.
Sorry, I'm not sure I'm understanding. What is the suggested
Whether
length?
whether the activities being proposed should have a specific time, hour and a half or 2 hours, etc.
Okay. I don't know if, Ali, do you want to jump in around the time piece?
Sure.
Time frame, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Of course, all this will be in full detail when we launch the call, so don't worry about that. But what we are thinking now, there are two possibilities. One is 1 hour and a half, and the other is 2 hours. And then there is a third possibility, actually. Suppose that you come up with the idea of organizing an artistic exhibition that can be open throughout the day. That's another possibility.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali.
Someone, David, asked whether it's possible to have pre-regional or continental events before the forum.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, we really invite folks, if you would like to proceed and host a pre-forum event in your region, we really invite you to do that. You can let us know and we can try to advertise it for you. But at this point, AWID as an organization, we are not organizing pre-forum events. We are probably like supporting others, but we're not organizing on our own. And I'll just give this example. In 2016, when we hosted our last forum in Brazil, in Bahia, Brazil, there was the Black Feminisms Forum, which was a pre-day event, a 2-day pre-forum event. That was organized by an advisory group of Black feminists. So they had approached AWID, I think a year or a year and a half. I think it was more like a year and a half in advance with the proposal. And they had asked AWID to help with the funding, but not the organizing. So, and there were a lot of Black feminists within the organization at the time. I was one of the feminists who was on this advisory group. And it was the advisory group that spearheaded and led the content and design and implementation of that. And that happened, as I mentioned, a year and a half in advance. So that's one example where, again, AWID did not organize it, but supported. So I think at this point, you know, we're a year in, we're winding down. So we are unable to support in very concrete ways, but we do encourage people, if you do want to organize a pre-forum event, let us know, and we can try to at least support in some way. Ali, do you want to add anything to that? Sorry, Ali, was that a no?
No, I'm sorry. There is one pre-forum activity that most likely will happen that we have started to organize, which is a trans feminism pre-forum. That is one, like we did the Black Feminist Forum in Brazil, we may be doing this most certainly before our next forum. That's one that we will be supporting, and we know that some groups, for instance, there is a group of Francophone feminists who are organizing on their own they will come in advance and they will meet together, and this is totally organized by them. We don't do anything other than sharing information with them about the venue and the place, but that's what I can add.
There's a question from Andy and Alicia around whether HIV positive, so whether activities around HIV infection in women or HIV positive women would be welcomed.
Fanny, actually, do you want to respond to that one?
Yes, absolutely. Please apply. We absolutely encourage collectives or groups working on this to apply for sure. And then there was a question from Roanne from Transwave in Jamaica. And I think Alice's comment addressed that around how trans people and communities fit in feminist frameworks and where that would fit. And as Ali just said, there will be a pre-trans feminist forum. So we'd really encourage you to participate in that. We would love to hear from you as well. And yeah, we encourage members of the trans community as well to apply. If we didn't address your question, let me know and I can rephrase it and ask. Shama is asking whether feminist foreign policy discussions can be tackled at the forum.
I think similar to my response earlier, I think you know what you like, what topics you want to cover. What the only thing we're really asking to do is to center it within the context of feminist realities. So if that policy discussion is about feminist realities, for sure. And again, so not just thinking about feminist realities as a conceptual framing, but think of the methodology that you're using to shape your activities. Are they bold? Are they creative? Are they propositional? Right? Is this something new and innovative? So those are like the two big things. I think if it's just only two things you leave with from this call today is, one, the activity you submit for your proposal should be centered in and be about feminist realities. And secondly, it should be bold, creative, and propositional.
Great. There's a question around whether this framework also applies to women in Afghanistan. I assume, just to check the question, that whether you're asking if the call for activities is open to women based in Afghanistan, and it is, of course, open to people based anywhere. Mm-hmm. Will there be a specific activity for young feminists during this forum, or should they go through the call for activities?
At this point, we are still working on the forum program. So we don't have content confirmed as yet. We have been working with young feminists, particularly around the Beijing 25+ process and our very own Beijing Unfettered process. So we've been doing work with young feminists in different regions across the world, specifically around Beijing +25 or Beijing 25+. But at the same time, yes, please submit. If you are a collective of young feminists doing incredible work around feminist realities, we really do encourage everyone to submit. Yes. Okay.
Well, at the moment, there's no more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, take a break.
Next slide was a moment of pause.
Oh, great. If there's any more questions.
One thing that did not show up in the PowerPoint was this beautiful image that was created by some of our members. I don't know why it's skipped, so I just want to come back to that and show it to you all. So as I mentioned at the very beginning of the call, this is the first public, very large public online activity that we're doing around feminist realities, the toolkit, and the upcoming forum. But we did have something smaller that we did with some of our members back in September. And it was really intimate and beautiful, and it was really, really important and helpful hearing from our members about some of the work they're doing around feminist realities and how they see themselves feeding into the work. And so this was an extremely beautiful creative report out that was done by some of our members. I think one of whom is on the call, Nakwanda, if you want to say hi. But the other two members, Naini and Kirthi. Naini is currently based in Toronto. Kirthi, I believe, is based in India. So Naini, Kirthi, and Nakwanda created this beautiful report out. So for folks joining by the call, it is an image of, on the left, a range of feminists and women who are of different races, cultural and ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, who seem to be protesting or just gathering and communing. And then there's a poem that was written, I believe, by Naini. I'll read the poem, especially for those on the phone and who are having difficulty seeing. And it says, "Together we gather across borders and boundaries, and barriers built to keep us apart. We are resistance and reimagination. We are revolution in slow praxis. We defy and deny definitions of whom and how we must be." So that was a poem created as part of this image. And then to the right is a really beautiful, stunning, almost modern art type image of what seems to be a woman in a hijab. I think this part was done by Nokwanda. I'm not 100% sure. Nokwanda, are you still on the call? Did you want to just say anything quickly? And if not, I just wanted to name you because I did notice that you had joined earlier. Okay, so now that you've seen that beautiful image, we'll continue to where we were.
Hi.
Oh, is that you? Hi.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, hello.
We are hearing you. Okay, Naquan, it seems like we're having some.
Okay, great. Yes. So the. Oh, that should be me. Oh, okay. I guess I'll just.
Okay, Naquan, we're having some connectivity issues, but please jump in the chat. I don't know if folks got to see your face. I'm not seeing the face, so I'm not sure. But I just wanted to name you and thank you and the other members who created that really beautiful image. So yeah, please feel free to jump in the chat, and sorry we couldn't hear your voice. Okay, so we are at 11-ish, and so we are coming towards the end of the activity, but I just wanted to share with you a couple things to keep in mind as next steps. So we do have some upcoming forum activities. In November, as I mentioned, there will be the Facebook Live event for the call for activities. So you've had some time, you now have an idea as to what we are looking for. Use this time now and between the call for activities Facebook Live event to maybe start coming up with an initial skeleton for your proposal activity or activity proposal. So that way, when the Facebook Live event happens, you can ask questions that are very much connected to what you're thinking about. We will also have the launch for the call for activities in November, and either accompanying the launch or soon after, there will be a frequently asked questions document. So a lot of the questions you all have shared in the chat and on today's activity are helping us curate the frequently asked questions document. So keep thinking, keep sharing, and hopefully by the time we do the Facebook Live event, by the time we do the actual launch for the call for activities, as well as the frequently asked questions, but hopefully we would have answered all, if not most of the questions you still have. There will also be an online film screening that is only for members. So if you are not an AWID member, we ask you to think about joining, especially if you want to see the film. It's called Nyla and the Uprising. And it is a film that looks at the powerful journey of women's organizing in the first Intifada in occupied Palestine. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's going to be on November 5th, I believe. And if you are a member, make sure to participate. And if you are not a member and would like to see the film, we invite you to sign up on our website to be a member. In December, there will be an interactive presentation on autonomous resourcing. So keep that in mind if that's something that you would like to participate in. And all of these things, we do send it an email with the actual dates, but also you can also check out, there's a link embedded here when we share the PowerPoint. Once you click that link, it will take you to the page on our website where we have the activities as part of our Feminist Realities journey. So I'll pause here. Ale, or do any of the staff have anything to share about upcoming activities or things that folks should keep in mind as we build towards the forum?
Hi, yes. Just a clarification that the autonomous resourcing activity, we are moving it to June. And we also have upcoming discussions on on economic justice and workplace and labor justice, and it will be coming in March. And we will also be having discussions around bodily autonomy in April. So there will be more activities announced, so please keep be pending of the online journey activities. And we will also be having webinars, Facebook webinars for when we launch the call. There will be more questions asked, I'm sure, and we'll have more information. So that will be beginning of December after we launch the call.
Thanks, Maggie.
And I wanted just to add something a little bit more about what we were saying about feminist realities, and to inspire people to think towards the forum and to discuss this more. It's about what you're doing that works. It's about the solutions that you found. What you are creating that allows you to already live in the world that you would like to live all the time. Any practices, any ideas, any projects. This is what we want. This is what we are looking for to share, because, you know, we are in a very horrible moment in most everywhere in the world, and we need to think differently, and we need to support each other and to get inspired from each other. So I wanted, Kimberly explained this beautifully, but I wanted to just reiterate it at the end. So you will also, you heard it in the beginning and at the end, so you will keep it with you. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Ali. Anyone else on the staff team wanted to share anything before we move to the next slide?
Kimberly, there's a question about getting support in drafting a proposal and giving proposals a practical aspect, I guess, and help. I think it means like help crafting the proposal activity itself.
Okay, thanks, Shelley. And it actually makes me think that one of the things we didn't talk about was what makes this forum so different from previous forums. That we did talk a little, but not, there were a couple of pieces missing. So, and Ale and Fenia, please feel free to jump in as well. So we see this forum, and we are so happy to say that it has already started taking the shape of being a really co-created forum. So we have had committees in the past who have, you know, played a bit of an advisory, sometimes working role. This time around, we do have committees, but the intentionality behind the design and the why of these committees and how they do their work is something that we as staff have fed into, but also folks we are inviting to join us have really fed into and they continue to feed into it. So, an example, we have a content and methodology committee, and this content and methodology committee is made up of about 18 feminists and organizers who are doing a range of work around popular education, creative methodologies, creative facilitation and content, and are doing really incredible, important work within and across movements. And they have been giving us really important feedback into the call for activities, into what we will be launching as a participatory selection process. So that is exactly what it is. When you submit your activity proposal, it's not just AWID staff who are reviewing this and making decisions. We will have folks external to the organization and even people who have submitted proposals reviewing other proposals and giving feedback and helping us decide what are some of the strong pieces, content pieces, programmatic pieces for the forum. And so part of that process, we would like to consider offering support to help people think through and strengthen their proposals. Ale, did you want to add anything to that?
No. You covered it wonderfully.
Yeah. So if before the actual deadline to submit, you notice that you have an idea and you feel like you're almost there, you just maybe need a second pair of eyes, a third pair of eyes, and you can feel free to reach out to us, and we can definitely try to support you. But we also know that we are also a small staff complement. And so we don't want to promise something we can't give. But because of the participatory selection process, we know that we might see a proposal that, you know, it's talking about feminist realities. There's something there. There's a real beautiful gem that we just need to sort of tweak. And so we're not just going to throw you to the side. We're actually going to talk amongst the participatory selection committee, the continent methodology committee, and other staff around how can we help strengthen this? Do we get in touch with the organizers and maybe help them think through and strengthen? So that possibility is there. That was a very long way of answering your question. Hopefully I answered it.
Kimberly, or maybe Ale, there are a couple of questions around the Access Fund, funding opportunities. I think we can maybe just give some general info on any funding and the Access Fund that could respond to those.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Shall I do you want me to do it?
Yes.
Yeah, of course, in every AWID forum, there is a possibility to fund some of the participants, not all, because as you can imagine, most of us will need funding to attend an event like this. And the reality is that we have limited resources. So there are funding opportunities exist, yes. They are limited, yes. For this forum in particular, we are going to prioritize the people submitting activities that had been selected for the program in the ways that Kimberly was explaining, and that we are going to further explain once we launch the call. So that's all I can say for now. Is the possibilities will exist. You have to be aware that we usually require much more. There are many more people requiring support than the people we have money to support. So that's all I can say for now. And there will be much more detailed information. And we are also going to share with you some suggestions, because we may not be able to support your participation, but there are other funders. There are funders. We are not funders. Let me say only one thing. If you already have funding, if you already have a donor for your organization or your group, this is the moment to talk to your donor and to tell them that you want to come to the AWID forum, because they are already preparing budgets for next year. So if you have a donor, I know many organizations don't, but if you are among the lucky ones that have donors, talk to them now. Don't wait for us, because our possibilities are limited. So if you have a donor, go to your donor. If you don't have a donor, there are other ways in which we will be sharing with you suggestions on different ways how you can fund your participation. We know that it's very difficult for many people. We are fully aware of that. And believe us, if we could, we would do a forum of 100,000 people and we would fund 98,000 of them. We don't have that capacity. So it's going to be hard for all of us.
Thank you, Ali. And as mentioned earlier, and Ali also brought it up again, is that in the call for activities, we will have some information around suggestions on how you can enable your participation in the forum, which we know that very much includes funding, definitely.
There is one question whether participants have to be part of an organization to submit a proposal. No, you do not need to be part of an organization. And a very short answer.
Yeah, you do not need to be part of an organization. I would also remind folks, like, how we understand feminist realities. One of the key parts is that it is about mobilizing and strengthening collective power. So an activity proposal that is coming from one person will not carry as much weight as something that's coming from a group and a collective of people. Because if it's one person doing work on their own, as important as that is, it doesn't necessarily speak to the collective power element of feminist realities. So just keep that in mind as well. But it does not have to be a formal organization that, for example, is registered as a charity or a non-governmental organization.
No more questions for now, I think. If we missed anything, feel free to share.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, and then there'll be the Facebook Live event where we encourage you to like put as many questions in the chat. So we wanted to check in with you all and see how you feel. How do you feel about today's conversation? Did it spark a curiosity and a desire to advance feminist realities in your work? So if you can type in the chat, 1 for not at all, and 5 for absolutely. So you can pick along that spectrum to show whether or not today's activity helped to spur some of that curiosity and desire to talk about feminist realities, to build feminist realities. So yeah, keep them coming. And then we'll just pause and see how people are feeling. And as people are submitting their responses, I mentioned this at the very beginning, but as people were joining, you might have missed me saying this. We really had envisioned today's activity to be one where people were talking and sharing and engaging actually in the PowerPoint. So as you see, there's some little stars to the right corner of the screen. We had hoped people would be in the PowerPoint and then taking a star and putting it along the spectrum, 1 to 5. But we had almost 1,000 people register for today's activity. So we were like, well, there's no way we can possibly, or at least properly, hold that kind of space for so many people. We had, I think at most, we had about 145 of you on today's call. We're now down to about 135, 132. So we just want to thank you for showing up and to say that, you know, we did not want to just be talking faces, sharing with you. We really wanted you to be able to engage, but we were trying to be mindful and a bit preemptive about the numbers that we thought were going to show up on the call. So Fenia, Shelley, like, what are we hearing from folks in terms of whether or not they're sparked and intrigued?
Yes, I think definitely sparked. It seems lots of 4s and 5s, which is excellent to see. Yeah, appreciative of the format and of the space.
Nice, great, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And we do have, before you go, we do have a very short Google survey form. If Shelley or Fenia can just share the link. We are inviting you to, if you can start now, feel free to start now. It is anonymous. The exercise we just did was really just like a teaser as to how you're feeling. But this Google survey, we asked a bit more targeted questions around how the feminist realities framework is resonating, how you can use it in your work, how we can do better around these online activities, and also your interest and what you need towards the forum. So if you can take some time now and even after the call to submit that, that would really, really help us strengthen our work. We thank you in advance because we know these things take time. The survey form should not take more than 5-10 minutes for you to do. Yeah, and there's also an open-ended question if you have just overall feedback to share with us. So we welcome you to submit that. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can use this link to submit those questions to us, or hold on to those questions and wait until you are participating in the Facebook Live event on the call for activities that will be happening in November. So that is all we have to share with you. We're really happy that we're finishing just a little before time so people can stretch and relax and maybe go to bed. I just want to welcome back the staff to show their faces and to say goodbye or any closing thoughts.
Yeah, bye everyone, and thank you so much for joining and for really engaging and all of the feedback. It's been really great. And thank you, Kimberly, for hosting us all.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, for leading us through this, and thank you to everybody. I was following the chat very lively, and I'm glad it was useful to some of you, and thank you for sharing and to being so engaged throughout.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. This is so inspiring for us too. I'm going to really take a lot of energy from all of you and plug it back into the work. So I really appreciate all of you being here, and thank you so much for sharing. And thank you, Kimberly, for an excellent webinar.